Lisa. I had said in an earlier video that I had some events that were going on and I would be making more pictures and scrapping them. And I have printed out some pictures from some recent things, but I discovered that we made a trip last year to Charleston that I thought I had scrapped some of it and hadn't done other parts. I hadn't scrapped any of it, and I had printed some of the pictures, the ones with people in them, but I hadn't printed any supporting photos. So I went back when I did my last photo order and did those. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to go to last March, and we made a trip to Charleston. There'll be two layouts for this because we did two garden things. We did other things we were down there, but two things that really have most of the photographs. And when I do something like this, I try to, if I remember to, add some of the journaling about the other things into these pages, because there's really not going to be another layout. There'll be a layout for this, there'll be a layout for the garden tour we did in downtown Charleston, and that's all. So I want to talk a little bit about other things that we did with my mom while we were on this trip, because it's primarily about her. And I don't always remember to do that, so I'd like to, particularly this time. I have a bunch of photos from a garden, and I can't right now. I'm sitting here with the camera thinking I should have looked up the name of this garden before I started the video. I will put it on the screen so you can see what the name of it is. It was a garden outside of Charleston proper, and it was beautiful. You can see from the photographs all these trees with all the wonderful Spanish moss, and the azaleas were in bloom, and it was just lovely. It wasn't the loveliest day. It was a little rainy when we got there. It was clear for most of our walk, and then it started raining, so we didn't, but we'd stayed, I think, about as long as Mother wanted to walk, and she enjoyed seeing all of this. It was really pretty. And I've got quite a few good pictures. I'm going to do this over a 2-page layout, and I've decided to do something a little contrary to what I normally go for a background. The first thing I did was go look for green papers to go with these nature kind of photos, and I didn't find anything that I really liked in my designer paper, especially where I had 2 pieces of it, and so I thought, well, I'll do cardstock. Quick survey of green. I could have done green cardstock, but I thought, you know, I'm going to do something that will really make these photos pop, and something a little bit different. So I looked at the pinks. Now, pink is not my mom's color. That is not something that's her, and you can see she's wearing something with a rust color here. I'm the one who has on, actually that shirt is more lavender than pink, but the flowers, of course, are the pinks. So I compromised with this slightly peachy color paper. I do not, this is Stampin' Up, but I do not know what color this is supposed to be. It doesn't go with any of the pink colors that I have labeled in my drawer, so this must have been some color they had way back when that that I have accumulated. But anyway, it's a couple of pretty pieces of cardstock, and I'm going to lay these photos out on this. My intention here is, let's just put a couple photos on. I don't know which ones are going to be on which pages, but anyway, what I'm looking to do is to have them spread across 2 pages, and to maybe do some die-cut flowers across the bottom. I'm also thinking about softening this pink with a little bit of a whitewash around the edge, just with some white paint or some gesso, just sort of rub that around the edge to soften the page. And what I'll do there is I'll spread the layout out like this and go around the whole thing rather than around each individual page. But I'm going to put the flowers down along the bottom, and then I can work my title and my journaling into this, and I may end up doing some type of interactive page where I lift up a photo and have the journaling underneath, because there's a lot of photos to spread over the 2 pages. So that's what I'm thinking about doing, and I'll be using my Silhouette to cut the flowers, but I need to find some paper to go with these flowers. What I have here is my 6x6 papers that have been broken down from their regular 6x6 pads, and they're just scraps. This was out of the purple drawer, but I'm looking for pinks and purples that would go with these papers that I can cut up in flowers. And I don't know if I'll use all these. I'm just grabbing a bunch that I think kind of work for. Let's see, I think I like that better. Die cutting with these really small prints makes a neat effect because you get a little bit of a visual texture to the design, and it's just, I think, more, I don't know if I want to say professional, but there's just an extra level to your die cuts when you use your really small print papers to do them. Or you take cardstock and you add some kind of decorative, stenciled something to it. But anyway, that's just an idea for you. Here's one. So I'll pull these, and then I will probably die cut some flowers and then come back and start assembling our page. So I want to add that white border that I was talking about to the paper. So I'm just taking some white gesso, using an old paintbrush, and doing a very light brushing of white paint. My experience with white pigment ink is that it never ever dries, so that's why I use the white paint, and this will dry pretty quickly. Just going around the edges. When I started this double page layout nearly 2 months ago, I didn't know that it would be so long till I got around to completing it. And I didn't know what an advantage that would turn out to be, because I've found some things to go on the page and I've looked at it a little bit differently than I did to begin with. The first thing I found, as we were doing some traveling, I was going through my suitcase to get ready for that trip, is the little guidebook that came with this garden location for Middleton Place near Charleston, South Carolina. It even has in the back the rain check, and that's why it was still in my suitcases. I thought, we might get to go back there. We were in the Charleston area again last year, but we didn't get to go back. We got to see most of it before it rained, but they were nice enough to give us a rain check, and I like to include things like this on the page if I can. So a lot of times I'll create a pocket for it. In this case, I think I'm just going to go ahead and attach it to the page because I really don't think I'll be taking it out to reuse it. Even if we went back there, I don't really feel like I need to remove this. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach it to the page, but I would like to create a cover for it, and I'm going to use some cardstock to do that. So I have a piece of Wild Wasabi Stampin' Up! Cardstock, and I want to make it fold. So we're going to take this, and I'll use the photo as a guide. And I don't want to have a lot of border, just a little bit of border. So it's going to go on like this. And then I will glue this to the page and then glue this on top of it. And what this will also give me with this little flap is a place to put my journaling for the page. So I'll have that ready to go. The other thing I was intending to do was to take all these little pieces of paper that I had picked out and have been laying here on my work table forever, and cut small flowers to go on the page. When I went to the Silhouette software to pick out some flowers, I found this die cut, and this is from Hero Arts, and I thought that it was a lot more chic, and it was a lot more like my mother, and as opposed to lots of little flowers, especially lots of little pink flowers. While that goes with the pictures, it doesn't really go with her, and that's really what the trip was about. So I decided to do 2 of these, and I just flipped it horizontally, so I made a copy and flipped it horizontally so I could have one facing one way and one facing the other, and then I've done a shadow out of a peach colored paper that's going to go behind it. So I'm going to have one on each of the pages going across here. And I feel like then for some additional color and to kind of pull the pages together, I'm just going to do a border across the bottom. I also, since the bad thing about leaving this for so long is that it's laid here and it's gotten something on it. Something's dirty on the bottom of that paper. So I really kind of need to cover at least part of that up. So I'm looking at some washi tape to pull out, and I really like this one because there again I think it looks like my mother. I have used this some and it's tearing. So hopefully I can get a good strip off of this to use, and maybe some of these others. I also looked at some different designer papers for this to make my border. This one I think is the best color. Again, this is not really mother so much as this black is. It just depends on how much of an accent I want this border business to be down here. So let's take that. I'm going to tear that off anyway and see what it would look like on the pink. Whether I like that or whether I want to do something more dramatic and use the black. I think I've used this for a border before. I think that's why it's cut in those little bits. I really like the black. I didn't think I would, but I like that definition that is here. And what I think I'm going to do is cut this right through the middle here. So that I can do one side on one page and the other side on the other page and have a match to them. So I need to trim this one down so that they'll match. And then I'll put maybe some pink washi tape going across that. So I've got a couple of options there. That one's good. I like that one. And maybe one of the greens. We'll just have to see. That might be too many colors. But these two colors would be really, really nice with it. And we just won't worry about that black washi tape. We'll use one of those. So that's kind of how I'm going to pull the page together at this point. Normally I do all of my adhering of things kind of off camera, but I'm showing you that I am using the grid lines on my mat and kind of just sort of marking with that pencil where the center was, and that's how I eyeballed the position of those two photos. And then I'm just adding this border down at the bottom. Now this is not the most unique page. I've done this same kind of thing before of using a border to go across a two-page layout to pull things together. But in this case, it's just what it needed. So it's certainly fine to do something again. And especially in my case where it's been a while and I need to get back into things, it's a lot of pressure to come up with something really completely new for a page. And these strips going across really tie it all together. And then I'll just line everything up on the right-hand page to match the left-hand page. Now I've got my journaling inside that flap, as I'd indicated, and I just printed out Middleton Place. It's a lot of letters. And then I'm going to add, I wanted to add exploring, but as I started putting my letters down, I usually do that on something they can peel off of, like wax paper. But in this case, I just went for it and just laid them down there, and I only had room for explore. So that's fine. So we have Explore Middleton Place. It's really cool, old Thickers font. I haven't bought any of these things in ages, so all this stuff is pretty old. And to continue with using things I've used before and kind of going with the tried and true stuff, I have some enamel dots because I felt like I needed to bring a little bit of that black color up into the rest of the page to tie it all together. And since Mother's wearing black, there's a lot of that in the photos as well. So there's one large dot for the smaller flower on the right-hand page, and that completes the pages. So I'm sorry it's taken me so long to do this one, but I really like it. I think it worked out very well.